Being ignored is absolutely no fun, especially when it's your horse that you are probably spending so much time and so much money to keep that's doing the ignoring. But today I want to ask, is your horse really ignoring you? Or is your horse maybe just a little bit laid back? Because you see, being unresponsive and being laid back are two very different things, and they require a different approach when it comes to how you're going to train and work with your horse. Okay, let's dive in. Hey there, and welcome to the Daily Strides podcast. My name is Lorna Leeson. I'm an equestrian trainer and coach, and I work with riders from all over the world to help them to understand better ways to communicate with their horses, train their horses, and work with their horses, especially if they're doing it alone without a trainer or coach. Okay, so I want to talk today about something that we're actually been spending quite a bit of time on inside of Daily Strides Premium this month, and that is talking about your horse going forward and your horse being, if you want to quote unquote, self-motivated when it comes to working. Now, this is a big issue, and if you have a horse who is enthusiastic and full of the joys of life and so self-motivated, this isn't really going to pertain to you, I'm going to be honest, okay? But if you're somebody who feels like every day, well, maybe not every day, but most days, it's a bit of an uphill battle, okay? There's like no enthusiasm. There's no willingness from your horse to be an active participant in whatever it is you want to do. This is the lesson for you, because I think that when you are talking about kind of approaching this challenge and maybe figuring out a way forward for both you and your horse that's going to work for both you and your horse, and I think that's really important. We're going to touch on that later. But it is up to you to really, really and truly get clear on what is actually happening. And instead of keeping on moving the old goalposts, okay, because, expectations are just completely different to what the outcome is, you can actually begin to look at what's going on very, very clearly with a view to figuring out the best way forward, okay? I think that you have to ask and answer the question, is my horse naturally laid back, or is he simply ignoring me and being unresponsive? Okay, so they are not the same thing, okay, before we go any further. Now, I know you probably know this, but it's really important because I think sometimes they all get lumped into the same category. They're not. They're two very different things, okay? Like very, very, very different. And having the kind of worked with and spent time with horses in both categories, they require a different approach, okay? So if we think of your horse being laid back, that is actually how your horse is, okay? He's chilled, he's relaxed, doesn't let a whole lot bother him at all, okay? He is just very, very, just a relaxed kind of a person, okay? He's we'll get there, relax, we can do it, okay? He's willing, but he's not willing to do it like that, okay? Now, unresponsive is so different, because being unresponsive, that is actually a learned behavior. That is something that if your horse is unresponsive, he has almost like taken that on. And whether he took it on as a way to maybe work around doing something he doesn't like, maybe it was a way to get out of discomfort or pain, maybe it was due to bad riding or bad training. There's lots of different reasons, okay? But being unresponsive is something your horse has learned, okay? And if your horse is laid back, okay, the first category, that's something that you have to work with, okay? If your horse is unresponsive, that is also something you have to work with, but it can be changed. I don't think you can change your horse's personality if he's laid back, okay? That's the long and the short of it. Whereas if he's just being unresponsive, yes, that can definitely be changed if it's addressed correctly. So let's look at ways that you can actually today begin figuring out which of the two your horse is, if you're just feeling like you're all the time like, come on, buddy, join me on this together. We can do it, okay? So the first thing is to think about your horse's energy, okay? Now, if your horse is naturally laid back, he's going to be really calm. He's going to be relaxed. He's easygoing. And this is almost across the board, like in all situations. And what happens is, especially when you ask for more when you're working, and we'll dive into it more just now, but he will respond to you, okay? It's just that the response might be like a touch slower than maybe you would like, or a little less keen than other horses. Now, if your horse is lacking responsiveness, and this is about the energy, okay, your horse's energy. If he's lacking responsiveness, it almost feels like your horse can be a little bit stuck in the mud, okay? It like you can feel just the not wanting to be there. It's like this energy that is resonating from him, okay? He feels unmotivated. You might find yourself having to reapply the aids over and over and over again to initiate any sort of response, okay? And it'll be the way it is all the way through the session. And I say that because, remember, sometimes a tired horse can seem or appear unresponsive, and it's only because they're physically tired. Like they're telling you, listen, I'm done, like I'm beat, I'm finished, okay? This is enough for today, I can't do anymore. That is different to the horse who, from like minute one of you working with the horse right the way to the end, is just not with you, okay? That's unresponsive. So it is important to make that difference as well. So what I'm going to suggest doing from here would be to test your aids and the response that you get from them. And again, if your horse is more naturally laid back, let's say you ask a question, so you use your leg or your seat, okay? If your horse is naturally laid back, he will respond. But again, it might be just a little bit slower than what you're expecting, okay? It's not like that. It's, yeah, I will in a second, okay? and you have this very clear understanding that you're not being ignored. It just kind of takes him a little bit longer to compute what you're saying and then to take action on it. That's all. It's kind of like he goes, yeah, okay. And off he trots, okay? Or off he does his thing, okay? Now, this versus the horse who's just unresponsive, because you will definitely feel like he ignores you when you put your aids on, when you apply any aids, okay? And he will continue to do so over and over again. Now, you might come back with this with stronger aids, so you'll apply more pressure, or maybe you'll begin to use artificial aids, okay? To try and obviously get a response from your horse. And again, you're probably going to feel like this resistance. And I just want to point out, this is definitely a training issue, okay? But remember, it can also signal discomfort, and it can signal that he just doesn't like the job. We're going to chat more about that just now. But keep that in mind as well. He mightn't like the thing you're asking him to do. That might not be his thing in life. And that's fine. But it is important to keep that in mind. But the big thing is that when you apply an aid, it feels like you have to keep going on and on and on and on and on about it before maybe you might get a response, okay? Whereas the laid back horse, he just takes a moment or two to himself just to make sure he understands it all, to get all his ducks in a row, and then boop, he goes, okay? So keep that in mind. And then the last way that you could kind of consider this and begin to, if you want to kind of throw it up, you can to and fro with it, would be groundwork, okay? And putting kind of groundwork versus riding, because the naturally laid back horse, as I said at the beginning, he's probably pretty relaxed on the ground as well, okay? He's not hurrying anywhere. He's not rushing anywhere. He's just getting himself there in his own sweet time, but he is responsive. He is listening to you, and he knows that you're asking a question. He just mightn't be like hot to trot as to giving you the answer, okay? It's like a way of being. He kind of exudes this just very chilled nature, okay? And obviously the horse that lacks responsiveness, well, you're going to feel like you're just either dragging or pulling him or chasing him all around the place on the ground. He is like sluggish, probably uncooperative, and he may even hesitate like to do anything with you, okay? Like he might just say, no, not into that, not doing it. That's it. Okay. So they are very different. Now, I think that you need to keep in mind that, again, they are very, very different. Okay. And another way to think about this, and especially with the aids, is that very often with an unresponsive horse, when you kind of come in maybe with more pressure, so you apply your aids a little bit more firmly, okay? That's a nice way of saying it. You come in with a little bit more pressure. You have a bigger ask, okay? A bigger question. Your horse might actually just, totally resist you, or even like have a bit of a temper tantrum, like troll his toys out the cot. Listen, no, not doing it. That's it, okay? No. Okay. And again, keep in mind that it could be because there's discomfort, there's pain. There's always reasons behind this because it is a learned behavior. Okay. And I think that often we get all caught up about thinking like, oh, it's good or it's bad. It's right or it's wrong. It's neither here nor there. It is what it is. And when you can figure out which one your horse actually is, okay, then you can start working with that and you can start helping your horse. And remember, I do think that very often, people will maybe listen to this and they'll think, oh, great, well, my horse is unresponsive. That's fantastic because I can fix that. And then somebody else might be like, oh, dear, my horse is just like really laid back. That's him. I can't fix that. And they maybe feel very down in the dumps about that. I would say, whoa there, now a second, before you jump into all those conclusions. I think that very often horses who are very naturally laid back, they're actually priceless in certain situations. But it's also worth remembering that you can't expect your horse to turn into something that he's not, okay? So you have to keep that in mind, okay? So if you're needing, and I think this is where you have to start making decisions, maybe tough ones. If you're needing a horse who you can trust 100% to be like rock solid, they've just got you, that they will be steady when you can't, okay? They are going to give you the space and the time to focus on you, to become better as a rider. That is priceless. Like, that is brilliant. That is where you want the naturally laid back horse. They are brilliant. They're worth their weight in gold. Versus the unresponsive horse. The unresponsive horse, you're not going to get to spend a whole lot of time on yourself, okay? And very often, and I hate to say it, and I know people are going to be offended, but here we go. Very often the riders of the unresponsive horse actually need the rock solid horse. They need the naturally laid back horse because very often the horses become unresponsive due to maybe the way the horse is being ridden, okay? Unpopular opinion, but there we go. I do think that is the way things go. But I think that it is important to understand that you have to make decisions, and whether that decision is going to be with maybe the horse who's unresponsive. No, I'm going to spend time here. I'm going to try and figure out the cause of this, and we're going to work through it. And if I figure out the cause is my horse is not happy doing the discipline or doing the thing that I want my horse to do, well, that's okay. I'm going to let that be there. And what I'll do is I will actually take another step forward in the decision-making process. And this is also true that if you find your horse is naturally laid back and you want like the number one world beater in whatever thing you're doing, and your horse is like, yeah, no, not for me, hey, not for me. You need to make decisions. And it's important to remember that horse riding is a team sport and the partnerships change, okay? You change, you evolve, you grow as a rider, your horse does the same. And sometimes you may not be the best match anymore. And you need to be willing and open to that fact, which is often a painful fact and a heartbreaking fact, but that's the fact of the matter. And I think that as a rider, it's your responsibility to be open to that and to be open to the fact that, hey, you know what? You're not actually the horse for me to do this thing on, okay? Like if I want to do this thing, I need to get another horse or another partner. Sometimes it means you don't have to break your first partnership entirely. You could just use your first horse and work with your first horse to do the thing you like to do. But it may require then having a second horse to do something else on. Anyway, these are all decisions you're going to have to make, but I do think that it's really important to understand that as the rider, you have to advocate for both yourself and your horse. If you're interested in getting some audio horse riding lessons with step-by-step instructions to help your horse to be a little bit more motivated and enthusiastic about your training, join us inside of Daily Strides Premium. We're working on it for the full month of August 2024, and of course the lessons will be in there afterwards as well for you. You can find all the details over at stridesforsuccess.com/DSP. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Have a super day, keep well, and I'll chat to you soon. Be good. Bye.